Members, I call to order the Finance Committee meeting.
喺度根據過往一樣啊，首先提醒委員呢，假如
May I first remind members that if there are direct or indirect pecuniary interests in relation to the matters to be dealt with in this meeting, please, in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, disclose the nature of the interests involved before members speak. And I also invite members to note Rule 84 of the Rules of Procedure in relation to the stipulations on items to be voted where direct pecuniary interests are involved. So, first item, FCR bracket 2013-14-53. This item seeks approval of the recommendation of the Public Works Subcommittee made at its meeting held on the 7th of January 2014 in relation to PWSC 2013-14-29.
建議喺財委會作分開表決。
And no member has asked for this item be taken out at the Finance Committee for separate voting. If there are no other questions, this item will be put to a vote. Dr. Kwokaki. Chairman, this is of course a very important project, but as we have mentioned at the subcommittee, this increase cast doubts in the minds of the public because the costs have increased by over 30%. I don't know whether there are any substantial changes to this part of the project or whether any additional funding is needed. So I wonder if anything has been done by the Highways Department or other government departments to ensure that in the future there won't be any huge discrepancy between the estimated and the actual cost. Yes, I allow members to make comments, but as this item has not been taken out for separate voting, no administration's representatives are here. So you can make your comments, and then this will proceed to the voting stage. If there are no other questions, this item will be voted on. But those in favor of the proposal in FCR 2013-14-53, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against, please raise your hands. None. Abstentions? None. I believe members who have voted are in majority in support of this proposal. So this proposal is carried. Next item, FCR bracket 2013-14-45. This item invites members to approve the creation of a non-recurrent commitment of $15 billion for injection into the Employees Retraining Board. We have in the Labour and Welfare Bureau consulted the panel on manpower on the 19th of November last year on this proposal. And we have in attendance from the administration, Permanent Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Ms. Annie Tam, Principal Assistant Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Ms. Lydia Lam, and Executive Director of Employees Retraining Board, Mr. Stanley Ng. And may I invite Mr. Lee Chek Yan to report on the deliberations of the manpower panel. At the meeting on the 19th of November 2013, the Manpower Panel discussed the proposal of injecting $15 billion into the Employees Retraining Board. In principle, the members have no objection to the proposal, but would like to invite the administration to note the following concerns arising from the discussion. The first is on the investment return of the retraining fund, and second, to provide training courses to youths and dedicated target groups, and thirdly, about the training courses directions. That they should target the industries where manpower situation is tight without the need to import labor, and to resolve manpower shortage problem, and also to provide training allowance to part-time students in half-day courses mode. And I need to declare that I am a secretary for one of the training organizations, and I have 3 points to make in relation to the paper. Investment returns will be used, but there is nothing stopping from the board from using the capital as well. Well, when investment return is poor, you might need to dip into the capital, and with the $15 million that's injection, there's a difference of or it stands at $750 million. So you should make it clear that although occasionally the capital might be utilized, on the whole it should remain stable. The second point is about ethnic minorities. We have received a lot of views that support is not adequate. Training for ethnic minorities should be enhanced, and there should be more outreach programs for them to be enrolled into these courses. And the third point is that, as mentioned at the last meeting, it is very ridiculous because for employment-tied courses, they have 10-day courses covering the whole day of weekends, etc. This is not logical. The logic should be that if it's on a full-day basis, more subsidies should be given. So in order to save this amount, the courses are split up into such a manner, and the employees' time is wasted, and they need to give up their time and pay for transportation in order to come. So why can't you have full-day courses and on consecutive days? And this paper doesn't respond to my point, so 3 points. Questions and answers, I'll give 4 minutes because we have more items. So, Permanent Secretary. In fact, it's mentioned in the paper in relation to the first question. Paragraph 15 and 16 talks about the investment arrangement, and the injection will be used or will be placed with the HKMA in order to have an investment return that is linked to the performance of the exchange fund. We believe this is more prudent and appropriate, but of course the investment of the exchange fund under the HKMA may vary according to the economic situation that year. So we will carefully monitor our financial condition to ensure that other than investment return, there will be also levy under the supplementary labor scheme and other incomes, together with the balance of the ERF, or there might be income from employees in order to have a sustainable financial position. And we've also made it clear in the paper that in certain years the investment return of the ERF may not be able to meet the needs, and the ERB under such circumstances might have to utilize a certain part of the principal to ensure stable provision of services. So we will closely monitor the situation. We don't want to use the principle too frequently, but that's more or less the arrangement. As for ethnic minorities, this is also an issue of the ERB's concern. If we have more time, I can invite the Executive Director to speak more on this. On the full day, half day mixed mode. In 2002, in November, we rolled out this mode, and there are concerns expressed, and we can review the situation regularly. Again, if time allows, I can invite the Executive Director to explain more about it. Yes, please be succinct. I want to respond briefly to Mr. Lee's question. At the Manpower Panel meeting, all the views expressed have been seriously followed up on, including the training support and support for ethnic minorities, and also the mixed training mode. We are going to review these arrangements and follow up on these points during the 2014-15 year. In particular, for support for ethnic minorities, we are working with the Home Affairs Department. We'd like to roll out an outreach program so that at the Center for Ethnic Minorities we can provide training courses so that ethnic minority groups can undertake these courses which are close to their vicinity. As for the review of the course mode, this will be carried out between 2014-2015. Next, Mr. Pun Siu Ping. I also need to declare that for my federation, we also are one of the training organizations. This question was asked at the panel meeting, and I'd like to follow up on it. Now, the $153.8 for the unemployed workers have remained the same for years, and is it time to adjust the amount? About the injection of $15 billion, investment return varies. So if there are additional places with additional subsidies, more funds may be required. Just now, Permanent Secretary said that the principle may be used, but is there a cap on it so as to meet all the needs? What if investment return is very poor with a lot of unemployed workers requiring retraining? Is there a cap on how much of the principle you could use? P.S. In para 16, as I answered Mr. Lee's question just now, during certain years in which the investment income may not be able to fully meet the training needs, and the ERB under such circumstances may need to use part of the principle to ensure a stable provision of training courses and services. What about the amount of 153.8? Will there be any adjustment? ERB? Now, according to the statutory maximum, the monthly subsidy training subsidy is $4,000. About the amount of $153.8, depending on the need, the ERB will review the disbursement arrangement, including the amount. Next, Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Also, a question on investment return, Chairman. In footnote 5 of para 15, it says that if it's placed with the HKMA, the investment return is 5%, or the rate of return is 5%. And then for members' reference, the investment return rates from 2011-2013 were 6%, 5.6%, and 5% respectively. This may be the rate of return for the exchange fund of the HKMA. I believe this is the rolling rate of return for 5 years. I believe that's the case. I stand to be corrected. But yesterday, according to the HKMA's press conference, over the past year, last year, the rate of return was 2.7%, and then over the past 5 years, 3.5%. The past 10-year period, 4.1%, and the rate of return since 1994 is 5.4%. So is so here these estimates are much more optimistic, and I think the rate of return for 2014 is expected to be just 3%. So it seems Para 15 is hinting at something. I understand that. So, according to your example, if the rate of return is 5% per annum, the funding will be around $750 million. That's right. But what if the rate of return is just 3%? It's just $450 million, and the shortfall will be more than 40 million, as Mr. Lee puts it. It may be as much as 300 million. So how are you going to sustain the operation? Are you going to use the principle only? Thank you, Chairman. As pointed out by Mr. Sin, in Para 15, we're just giving one example. If $15 billion is placed with HKMA, the rate of return is definitely 5% per annum. And we also make it clear that the actual rate of return depends on the investment performance.
When we compiled the paper that was done before the Exchange Fund's press conference yesterday, in enclosure 5, we can tell that the rate of return in the past was 6%, 5.6%, etc. And in Para 16, we laid out how we're going to use the fund. Now, apart from the investment return, we also have levy and other incomes. And also, the ERF has a surplus of $1.6 billion right now. So with member support of an injection of $15 billion today, we will discuss with the HKMA and seek their advice before deciding on how much of the fund should be deposited with the HKMA. I have a follow-up question. Well, rather, is an opinion. The ERB focuses on training people for jobs which are in need in Hong Kong. In fact, some organizations do have their own retraining capability. And we might have to train people for faded glory skill sets. Mr. Tam Yun Chung, I must declare that I'm an honorary president of a vocational school, and also I've served in some honorary posts in a couple of retraining bodies. I was once the chairman of the ERB. Now, for this injection of $15 billion, I think it helps a lot in the ERB's work, and it can help generate a stable source of income for the board. And we don't have to wait for an annual allocation from the government. Now, certainly, come 1 year, there may be a high unemployment rate, and there is a huge demand, and we don't have enough money. Now, later on, we sort of imposed a levy on foreign domestic helpers, and that was disbanded later on. Now, if the government can inject a substantial amount into the ERB, then that can help a lot in ERB carrying out its work in a stable way. So I hope that the ERB can do a better job. So this is my opinion. Next one, Mr. Kok Wai Kang. Thank you, Chairman. As all of us know, this $15 billion should have been generated originally from the levy on FDH. Now, because that was cancelled, hence this injection of fund into the ERB, I have several questions. First, if, say, the investment return from the exchange fund is on the low side, does it mean that we can have no alternative but to resort to using the principal, or will the government consider making up the shortfall so that services will not be affected and classes will not have to be cut and the number of service targets will not be reduced? That's number one. Number two, the ERB now offers a a variety of courses, and they target young people, new arrivals in Hong Kong, and so on. I don't think this is an appropriate approach, because you are serving such a variety of service targets. I don't know how much resources are you committing for the young people. I would rather that you set up a dedicated fund for young people to help young people get jobs and identify their career paths. Third, we are all very concerned about the investment return from exchange fund. If that is the case, should we be seeking after alternative modes of revenue? What about the supplementary levy scheme? That a levy is now imposed, and only some 2,000 people are imported under the scheme. Now, FTU is concerned about the Labour Department's vetting of various import of labour programs. Now, for these programs, no levy is now presently imposed, but we think that a levy should instead be imposed. I think even if these workers have a degree, a levy should still be imposed. Now, the number in those categories is really big. There are some 80,000 people imported through those programs, and if we impose a levy, we will be able to generate, say, tens of millions of dollars per year. Before he answers you, should you be declaring an interest here? Yes, the FTU is one of the service body under the ERB. Thank you, Chairman. On the first question, in the paper, paragraphs 15 and 16 have set out clearly on the financial arrangements after the injection of the capital. Now, as for young people, we're very concerned about their career opportunities, and it's one of the foci of ERB. And actually, there are specific programs targeted at young people. Now, if time allows, perhaps the chief executive can talk more about this point. Executive director can talk more. Now, as for the talent admission scheme under the supplementary labor scheme, we hope that to import skilled workers on a short-term basis to ease the pressure on labor shortage in Hong Kong. And at the same time, we hope that Hong Kong organizations can provide training and retraining so that workers can be upgraded in Hong Kong. So it would be good if the employers can share all the costs. But then under that talent admission scheme, the target is really to enhance Hong Kong's competitive edge. And the policy objective there is a little bit different. So we didn't ask the employers to pay a levy. And in some cases, some of the talents don't have employees per se when they come to Hong Kong. So the different programs have different policy objectives and should be treated differently. Now, young people, Executive Director, please. Now, for young people and new arrivals to Hong Kong, they are our special service targets. We have dedicated programs for them. For new arrivals, we have 5 programs, and for young people, 56 programs. Now, apart from these special courses, we have some 800-odd general courses which are placement tied and jobs tied. So if we allow them to take these other courses as well, I hope that they can have more choices in terms of seeking a job. I think the present mechanism works well. Next, Mr. Leung Chi-Chow. I want to declare, Chairman, that I am from the anti-association. So organizations under my association do provide retraining courses under the ERB. Now, as to the question of injection of capital, I have 2 points to make. I hope a response can be given. First, we're talking about $15 billion. It will be put in an investment area, and we hope that we can generate an interest good enough for the ERB's use. Now, if that doesn't suffice, then will you be using the principal to fund the operation of the ERB? Now, if that is the case, I don't think the approach works. Now, have you made an estimate of when you will come back to the electrical for additional funding again? Now, this time round, the service targets have been expanded to those aged 15 or above. You said that the programs are going to be sort of packed to that age group. Those aged 15 are probably the Form 3 or juniors secondary school leavers. And if they don't continue with their study, they would join courses offered by ERB. Now, after they've taken courses offered by ERB, would they be able to articulate to other courses like degree courses or other professional courses? Is there an articulation path there? If yes, what kind of programs are we talking about here? Now, if members' questions are repeated, please make it brief in your answer. Now, for your first question, I have already answered, I think. The arrangement has been set out in paragraphs 15 and 16 of the paper. Now, for those aged 15 or above, the extension to that age group was done in 2007, and that was mainly because of the situation of the job market at that time. Now, in paragraph 4, we have laid out the programs for people who are not engaged or who are unemployed. And we hope that after taking these courses, they will be able to find a job. And if they want to further their studies, they still have the chance to do so. Next one, Mr. Michael Tian. Chairman, the New People's Party, before the last policy address, we urged the CE, or rather we met to the CE several times and repeatedly urged for the cancellation of the levy of FDH. That is because the society as a whole should shoulder the responsibility of retraining workers in Hong Kong, and not just the employers of FDH. So the government decided ultimately to cancel that levy, and we supported it. And at that time, we already felt that there was a need for a fund to support the long-term needs of the ERB. And so that the funding won't fluctuate from year to year. So we supported that a fund be established to sustain the operation of the ERB. Now, for supporting the working poor, I think this is something we should embrace, and that should be done through education and self-enhancement. And so we impart skills and knowledge on these people to help them get out of poverty. When I was the chairman of the ERB, I suggested that we should provide low or basic skill training for these people. Courses like computer skills, language skills that should be provided, so that these people can upgrade themselves, and they could browse on the web and for information on how to further upgrade themselves. Most of the workers are working in manual work, and now even for cleaning workers, they would like to go onto the web to look for information on how to do their job better. Now, even for the washers or cleansing workers, they can still browse the web to enhance their own competitiveness and skills. Now, in my office, there are some middle-aged workers who may receive telephone calls, and they go and buy things for the office. And if they can go onto the web, browse the web, then they can do some basic information searching on the web to enhance their job skills. Now, perhaps we can, say, pay them an extra $1,000 so that they can take over some of the duties done by the office workers. Now, way back I suggested that these courses be provided, say, free of charge to these people. Not only that, but also a subsidy should also be given to them when they took these courses. So I suggested that at that time that an allowance should be given to them, say 30 hours $30 per hour be given to them. But then my suggestion was voted down by the board as a whole, and I felt very keen about this idea of mine. So I wanted to raise it again today. I want this to be looked into again. Our suggestion is simple. Well, let's say we have a quota of 10,000 places each year, and everyone who is qualified will, have a maximum ceiling of, say, 100 hours per year, and we have a quota of 10,000 places. Well, let's try to do it. And I hope that the government can use this fund to do some alternative courses to enhance productivity of the society as a whole. Thank you.
Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. As Mr. Tian puts it, we have daytime and also evening non-placement tied courses. These are for employees who would like to change jobs or switch fields, and they provide basic skills training courses like workplace languages, numeracy skills, etc. And low-income earners may apply for fee waiver. As for the particular program suggested by Mr. Tian, if Chairman you permit, I would invite the Executive Director to respond briefly to it. Just very brief, it's not to do with the funding proposal. It's relevant because how the money should be used would affect our decision. We're not talking about free courses. We're talking about giving them allowances for them to take up courses because they need to make ends meet. Yes. If we look at the expenditure of the ERB in 2012-13, the expenditure is around $72 million. If we have an additional 30 million, it will be increased substantially by 41%. We need to consider our allocation of resources. If expenditure goes up in this regard, we may need to cut down expenses for other courses, so we need to be careful. Do you agree with this concept? Instead of 10,000 places, you can have 5,000 or just 3,000 places to start with. Do you agree with the concept? Now, we have divided our service targets into two categories. For the jobless and the unemployed, we provide them with training courses as well as allowances. For working trainees, we do charge them fees. If we waive the fees and give them allowances, I think this is a major policy change. We need to consider the financial commitment. Yes. Next, Mr. Wuchi-Wai. Many members here are also members of training organizations. The first question is this: will the Employment Retraining Board set up any mechanism, or does it have any mechanism to include or exclude any unqualified training organizations? Because it seems that the funds will be used as a permanent source of funds for funding for these substandard organizations. And also, are there any undertakings from the ERB that, in terms of the fiscal management, it will uphold the principle of spending within its means? Back then, when the income generated from the levy was high, they just squandered money away for the sake of using up the resources. So the third point is about Para 8 in relation to the benchmark. It's 70%, but the actual placement rate is 82%. Well, we're in full employment with just an unemployment rate of some 3%. Why is it that after retraining by the ERB, well, I thought that it should be a percentage higher than 82%. And for the benchmark or the indicators, will it be adjusted? PS. Now, to respond to Mr. Wu's questions, of course, the ERB must be prudent in spending the money. They need to fulfill the mission. They need to monitor their financial position and achieve their working objectives at the same time. And in the paper, it sets out the monitoring of the use of ERF. For example, the ERB also has a board comprising representatives from the administration, and on a regular basis they are required to submit annual reports which will be made public, and their expenditure will also be audited. This is in paragraph 17. It's hoped that their resources can be properly utilized. As for how the training organizations would be monitored, that is, for substandard or poorly performed training organizations, whether they will be subject to any sanctions. We have a stringent mechanism, and based on their performance, I mean, these training organizations are required to follow performance indicators. Executive Director, we have a mechanism in appointing training organizations, and we have a mechanism to assess their performance and, if necessary, to impose penalty. Well, we look at the objectives of the organization's service targets, the management standards, and also others factors, for example, quality of trainers, experience, training courses provided, and the employer's network. And apart from receiving such applications, we also, on our own initiative, invite experienced organizations to join our program. And we also have a number of performance indicators to assess their performance. And under such mechanism, we also look at whether these organizations haven't done well in certain areas, or whether there are any non-compliance cases, and we do impose penalty. What about employment or placement? Now, the benchmark is 70% at the moment, but the actual placement rate, as far as we know, is 82%. Some trainees were not able to report duties due to their own personal or family circumstances, or they might have another choice, or they might want to pursue further studies. So not all trainees would move on to employment after the completion of the program. That's why it's not 100%. Next, Dr. Fernando Zhao. Of course, we'll continue to support the Employment Retraining Board's work. It's very important. In particular, for the underprivileged in society, including the special service targets, is very important. For the underprivileged, like the ethnic minorities, the disabled, those suffering from occupational injuries, and also rehabilitees in drug treatment centers, is very important. This provides a channel for them to join the employment market again. So for these special service targets, I would like you to elaborate on them, because for these special service targets, I'd like to know what courses have been offered to serve what service targets, and what courses or courses belong to which industries are being provided that are placement tied. But there are 3 types of courses. So in serving these special service targets, I think ERB plays a special role. I'd like you to provide more details on your analysis. You should design the courses in relation to these special service targets. For example, for new arrival women, I understand that they can only take up half-day courses. And these half-day courses, I understand, are mostly non-placement tied. And it's not very helpful for those trainees to get a job. Childcare courses, for example. Very few or no such half-day courses are being provided. But new arrival women would like to take up these courses so that they can join the workforce. But without such courses in childcare, they can't do that. And you know that there are limited places. And when we talk about a tight manpower situation, we need to consider these points. And this also applies to ethnic minorities and the disabled. Through ERB courses and placement tied courses, their potential can be unleashed so that they can join the workforce, in particular women. So I hope more can be done in relation to the points I mentioned. For ethnic minorities, as far as the number is concerned, it's very limited. Only several hundred could take part in your courses, but their needs are far greater than the service capacity. For the disabled, outreaching is important. I hope you would take note of that. You should not only reach out to the ethnic minorities, but the disabled as well. Some of them, some of the disabled have mobility issues, and some centers mainly serve the disabled. So you can consider taking the outreaching approach. Thank you for your comment, Dr. Zhang. This paper is rather succinct. We can provide more information on specific services. We'll follow up on the comments made by Dr. Zhang. Next, Mr. Yu Si-wing. Now, if we look at the membership of the Employees Retraining Board's they come from the catering, tourists, and financial services industries. I don't know whether because of their representation on the board, these industries get the priority. What about those sectors not represented? And would it be more difficult? And the 3-year average expenditure is some 700 million. I don't know how the allocation is made. Is it based on the funding requests from different training organizations? What about new comers? Is it difficult? Any new ones? Any organizations to be phased out? In terms of membership of the ERB, we want to have as many representatives from different sectors as possible. We have representatives of employers and employees, and we also have 22 industries consultation network, or 22 members on the network, and we try to incorporate their views. And I will defer to the Executive Director to take the other question. We have a placement net tendering process, and training organizations can apply or submit their tender. and be it new or existing organizations, as long as they win the bid, they can get the funding necessary for running those courses. Next, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. I want to declare that I am chairman of the Employees Retraining Board in relation to Import and Export Sector Advisory Committee. I support this proposal. All right, any other members? Mr. Stephen Ho. Declaration. Mr. Leung Chi Chang and myself are members. Well, he is the chairman. I'm a member of the New Territory Societies Association. Any more declarations? I am the Deputy Secretary of the New Territory Societies Association. I need to declare as well, I am chairman of the HKCAAVQ, and we have business ties with the Employees Retraining Board. Any more? Please press the request to speak button first. Yes, requested. See that? Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Hello? All right. I think the Employees Retraining Board has this objective as set out in your paper. You want to provide market-driven training for employees.
In Hong Kong, what kind of trades are in need of sort of retraining programs? Under CY Leung's governance, financial services, should we provide retraining for that sector? Now, say if a person is unemployed and can't get a job in the market, and we provide retraining courses to him so that he can upgrade himself. And this is what Mr. Michael Tan said, maybe in general skills like language skills and computer skills. But I don't see that the ERB has a policy per se on training particular categories of workers. Why can't the market provide the training itself? Why can't capitalists or enterprises provide training? Why does it have to be done by the government? Please be brief in your answer. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. The ERB's objective is to provide market-driven courses. We cover 28 sectors in our programs. And it is the courses are wide-ranging in terms of the skills. For some, we train up workers for specific sectors. As what Mr. Michael Tan said, there are some courses on generic skills like IT skills and language skills. And Mr. Zhang also mentioned about courses for special service targets, the disabled, ethnic minorities, new arrivals in Hong Kong. We work closely with the employers. And actually, some of the courses were suggested by the employers, and they reimbursed us for providing such courses. Why aren't the employers paying for the courses? And why is the government doing it, paying for the courses? A majority of the service of our service targets are the unemployed or the non-engaged, and they don't have employers. So why can't we fund it out of our tax revenue? So employers have to hire people. I think what Mr. Leung says has to do with the policy and not the funding application specifically. Now, we're talking about public money to the tune of $15 billion. And you would be using the investment return to fund the operation of the ERB. If the fund level falls lower and the principal gets lower, what are you going to do? Regarding the principal and the injection and how to use the fund, actually, I've repeatedly tackled that question already. Now, say if the amount goes down from $15 billion to $12 billion, it's dropping, and if you don't inject some money to make up for the shortfall, then the investment return is bound to get lower and lower. Oh, I think that should be discussed within the relevant policy panel if the principal gets lower. I think that has to do with, that should be discussed within the relevant panel. If members don't have any other questions, then I'll put this proposal to the vote. Those in favor of FCR 2013-14-45, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against, please raise your hand. No. None. Abstention? None. So I think the majority of voting members support the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. Next, we would deal with item 3, FCR 2013-14-55, paper number. This is, members are invited to approve an increase in the commitment of the following subheads under head 111, subhead 105 and 107 to from 153.6 million by 44.1 million to 197.7 million for subhead 105, and then from 151.2 million by 56.7 million to 207.9 million for subhead 107. The CEDB has consulted the CINI panel on the 18th of June and the 19th of November 2013. And attending the meeting today is Ms. Janet Wong, Commissioner for Innovation and Technology, and Mr. Johan Wong, Deputy Commissioner, Mr. Frank Zhang, Assistant Commissioner, and Mr. Edwin Cage, CEO Hong Kong RITA, and Mr. Simon Wong, CEO LSCM. Before we discuss this item, I would like to invite the chairman of the CNI panel, Mr. Vincent Fang, to report on the outcome of the discussions at the panel. The CNI panel, in principle, supports the funding allocation to extend the operation of Hong Kong RITA and LCSCM till 2016 and 2017. Members urged the R&D centers to take more initiative to liaise with the commerce and industry sectors so that they can come up with more R&D projects that meet with the needs of the sectors, in particular SMEs. Some members said that the work on boosting R&D work and strengthening innovation capability are long-term investment, and the commercialization of R&D results takes time. Therefore, the government should not use monetary income in the short term as an indicator for the performance of the R&D centers. Moreover, the government should also proactively study whether there is a need to establish new R&D centers in other sectors. The panel also urges the government to commit more resources to strengthen work on innovation capability in R&D, and it should encourage private companies to invest in R&D work and pay more attention to groom local R&D personnel and attract more overseas R&D personnel so that we can boost our R&D capability. Mr. Stephen Ho, first. Thank you, Chairman. I think the government should provide all sorts of support to various industries so that Hong Kong's economy can be boosted as a whole. Now, as for paragraph 2A, Hong Kong Ritter, is it true that not enough publicity has not been done? It seems that it is not helping the sector too much. Now, last time when we talked about the Sustainable Fisheries Development Fund, members raised that the government should not be biased towards one industry or another and should be supporting all industries in Hong Kong. Now, when I look at the paper today, it seems the government is supporting other industries or sectors as well. So can the government provide specific figures and specific data on whether this kind of support can really help the sector? Or is it the case that only a few are applying for the fund and there is so much grievance within the sector? Commissioner, please. Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your question. For these two centers, there have been close liaison between the government, the academia, the industry, and the and our centers. Now, is it that there are too few people making the application for the fund? Now, take the Hong Kong Ritter as an example. In the first 5 years of its operation, there are 51 new projects. Now, in the subsequent 2 years, within 2 years, there are 33 new projects. Now, as for our SCM, 29 projects in the first 5 years, around 6 on average each year, and in the subsequent 2 years, 18 projects. And they've been getting sponsorship from the industry. In every $100 used, in the past 2 years, there has been a great improvement in terms of the ratio contributed by the industry. For Hong Kong Ritter, from 12.4% to 15 to 25.6%, and for SCM from 12.3% to 18.1%. Well, if time allows, perhaps I will defer to the CEO of Hong Kong Ritter to supplement. In the past several years, we have been proactively approaching the sector to understand what the challenges are, because we're talking about an international sector or industry here. Hong Kong has a long tradition of the textiles and apparel industry. We are confronted by many international competitors now. So there have been so many changes in the industry, and we are also affected by the changing environment in our neighboring countries. And also we are facing increasing demand in terms of environmental protection, i.e. we should emit less waste, and there are more stringent emission standards. While there have been a wide range of enterprises participating in the fund, 1 to 2 person companies, and also multinational corporations are also covered under the fund. Now, the challenge is this. Compared to, say, 20, 30 years ago, the competition was not that keen that time. But now, in every country, we face keen competition, a lot of competitors. If we don't go down the route of R&D, we will be lagging behind very soon. Mr. Chung Kwok Pen, I must declare that I was once director of the board of Hong Kong Ritter. I already stepped down. Last week, there was an allocation of $500 million for the Sustainable Fisheries Fishery Sustainable Development Fund. That was very enviable. For Hong Kong RITA, we're talking about $100 million or so. Now, for R&D centers, we are talking about long-term investment. In the initial years, we may be doing preparatory work, and we are starting to see results in the past couple of years. There has been much industry support, and we have generated over $10 million. So if we have to upgrade a traditional industry, we must need such an R&D center, and this Hong Kong RITA has been maturing in its development. And compared to other Asian nations, I think we are faring very well. Compared to, say, well, in fact, we are working or collaborating with a Japanese university to do a better job, giving better support to the industry. I believe that we will collaborate with other countries in the future. So I would support this proposal. Next one, Mr. Yu Si-wing.
Sorry, should be Mr. Frankie Yik first. Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, Chairman. I recently looked at some figures. According to the 2013 Bloomberg Creativity Survey, Hong Kong ranked 36th, Singapore ranked 7th, and mainland ranked 29th. So all along, in terms of investment in R&D, little has been done in Hong Kong. And I understand that R&D only accounts for less than 1% of GDP in Hong Kong. So the percentage is very low comparing to other neighboring countries. We have some R&D centers now, and about the area that I'm familiar with, the R&D Center for Logistics and Supply Chain Management Enabling Technologies. Ever since I joined LegCo, I got more familiar with the subject, and I understand that it's very useful because they introduce new technology and conduct research. I support both. Next, Mr. Yu Si-wing. About sponsorship from the sector, I think this is very good because they take a pragmatic approach. They can also achieve cost effectiveness. Now, can you tell me something about the scope and what will be benefit? What are the benefits? Commissioner. Well, basically, we have two programs. One is in the form of collaboration. That is, the enterprise may pay half of the cost, and it will be matched against the funding from ITC. The intellectual property rights will be given to that enterprise unless otherwise agreed because of the cost they have shouldered. The other approach is in the form of platform. These are rather preliminary research projects. Different enterprises in such programs have different benefits. For the matching fund approach, they get the IP right, and we also have a rebate scheme. They get 30% rebate, so they can start a large-scale R&D project with little cost. For this platform approach, they may not get the intellectual property rights, and yet they have a very early insight into the latest development. It may be conducive to their strategy in developing their business. And we also have a public sector pilot program. So after the trial scheme, apart from the report, we can have the result applied in some public sector organizations or statutory bodies like the Hong Kong Airport Authority. And Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to invite the CEO of the LCM to explain a bit more, because he has been engaged in a number of programs, so he is very familiar with the comments given by stakeholders. CEO. Thank you, Chairman. Let me supplement what Deputy Commissioner has just said, or rather what the Commissioner has just said. In terms of the logistics sector, our latest project is to install RFID readers along Chiang Mai Bridge. When goods vehicles enter the so-called logistics island, they will be notified. The units will be notified in advance to facilitate the arrangement of parking spaces. We hope that the logistics industry can have more businesses as a result, and this kind of communication technology is very suitable for us. In terms of information technology, we also introduce softwares for SMEs to get access to international IT platforms, so that with little cost they can install such technology and have access to international advisory platforms. And the other project has to do with supply chain management, and we also conduct relevant research. For construction industry and logistics industry, there are prefabricated materials being imported into Hong Kong, and at construction sites we also have radio telecommunications technology in order to enhance site safety and site management. Next, Mr. Charles Mok. I support the funding for these two R&D centers. I visited both centers. I talked with them. I understand from the frontline staff things to improve. I won't go into details today, but the Commissioner talked about the intellectual property right, and I'd like to say more about it. In recent years, when I talked to people coming from outside, or when I visited other places like South Korea, etc., I asked how the IP rights will be dealt with if they have invested in the project, and everything is in the public domain, is accessible by the public, and it seems that Hong Kong is being too anxious. The Commissioner talked about where the IP right should go, but in fact, instead of holding the IP right for just 1 or 2 years, after which they might not generate any benefit at all, it should be left in the open and public domain for public's use. So you should draw reference from overseas experience. And sometimes people may not understand the economic benefits. They looked at the list of projects online, and they say that the results are not commercialized, they are not launched in the market, they are not useful. So more publicity should be done. It's very important in terms of commercializing R&D results. I support funding for these R&D centers. All right, so contact the media and strengthen your publicity effort. Anything else? If not, this item will be put to a vote. Will those in favor of FCR bracket 2013-1455 please raise your hand. Please, those against, please raise your hands. Abstentions? None. I think the majority of members who have voted are in favor of this item. The item endorsed. Next item, item 4, FCR bracket 2013-1454. This item invites members to approve a new commitment of 71 or rather $71,284,000 for enhancing the infrastructure of the vehicles and driver's licensing integrated data system 4 of the Transport Department. On the 20th of December 2013, the Transport and Housing Bureau consulted the panel on transport on this proposal, and we have in attendance to answer members' questions from the administration, Ms. Amy Chan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Zhang Jinpeng, Assistant Commissioner for Transport, and Mr. Wilson Chiu, Principal Executive Officer of Transport Department, and Ms. Rita Lau, Senior Systems Manager of Transport Department. And would Mr. Chen Kam Lam, Chairman of the Panel on Transport, please report the deliberations to this subcommittee. On the 20th of December 2013, the Transport Panel discussed the funding application for the Valid 4 system. Members in principle support the relevant funding application. Some members urge the administrations to roll out initiatives to resolve the problem of not having up-to-date mailing address in the system, and some members urge the administration to actively consider providing more convenient services for the public, including SMS, reminding members of the public the expiry date of driving licenses, and more convenient online services. Some members also urge the administration to consider that apart from the drivers, the car owners should also be notified when commercial vehicle drivers receive booking tickets. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Charles Mott. Very briefly, after hearing the explanation of the system by the TD staff, I support this proposal. And I asked the same question before. Very often in this kind of systems, they include in the cost the construction of a data center or a data room. And we understand that the OGCIO is building a central data center, and very often I see these kind of proposals including a data room, and this is not consistent. I understand that the new data center may take some time to be available. The administration should do more in terms of coordination so that in the future, when you have the centralized data center, the government departments themselves don't need to build their own data centers in order to save costs. I don't really need an answer from the administration. This project may not make it in time, but since the centralized data center will be built anyway, this should be taken into consideration so that government departments don't need to build their own data centers. All right, for the administration's reference. If there are no other questions, this item will be put to a vote. Will those in favor of FCR bracket 2013-14 number 54 please raise your hands? Those against, please raise your hands. None. Abstentions? None. I think the majority of the members who have voted are in favor of this proposal. This proposal is endorsed. Last item. FCR bracket 2013-14 number 56. This item invites members to approve a new commitment of $46,400,000 for the replacement of 4 petrol launches of the Marine Department. And on the 16th of December 2013, the Bureau consulted the Economic Development Panel, and in attendance from the administration to answer questions from members, we have Ms. Jenny Chan, Principal Assistant Secretary for Transport and Housing, Mr. Zhong Xiu-man, Assistant Director of Marine, and Mr. Luk Yun Lam, General Manager of the Marine Department. So would Chairman of the Economic Development Panel, Mr. James Tin, please report the deliberations of the panel to the committee. Thank you, Chairman. The ED panel discussed the funding proposal for the replacement of 4 patrol launches of the Marine Department at a meeting on the 16th of December 2013. Members support this funding proposal. Members are concerned that in relation to the 23 patrol launches of the Marine Department, whether they can effectively ban vessels from entering Hong Kong waters, and suggest whether the newly replaced patrol launches can enhance the capability in this regard. Members also note that the newly replaced patrol launches will have a larger volume, and yet the vessel speed will remain the same, and yet with more fuel consumption, recurrent expenditure will be increased. Some members question the cost effectiveness. Some other members suggest that the administration should devise plans to replace vessels in a more orderly manner. On the whole, the panel supports this proposal. Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Thank you, Chairman. I support this in principle, but I have a question, and I have asked this question before.
I think we should support shipbuilding industry in Hong Kong, or else the industry will further dwindle here in Hong Kong. So the government, in your procurement of vessels, would you be giving consideration to supporting the local shipbuilding industry? If the vessels can't be procured in Hong Kong, of course you have to turn overseas. But is this a factor that you will consider? The administration, please. Thank you, Chairman. Hong Kong is a free trade area. And for purchasing such launches, we use the WTO standards, and we will conduct an open tender. There will not be any subsidy to any type of industry. Is it true that a local shipbuilding industry can't turn out these type of vessels or launches? In which areas they falling short of the standards? Now, local shipbuilding industry may win the tender, and then they will outsource the production part to other areas like the mainland. The Hong Kong's shipbuilding industry is withering, and the shipbuilders are producing the vessels in other areas like the mainland. Does it mean that the launches will not be manufactured in Hong Kong? Well, I don't rule out that possibility. For some of the launches, they can be manufactured in Hong Kong, but for others, they have to be manufactured overseas. So it depends on the company which put up the tender to see where it will be done would be most cost effective. Well, Chairman, I understand all these. I know that we have to put up an international, an open tender internationally, but if we consider the fact that we have to support local shipbuilding industry, and why can't we build into some conditions in the tenders which can help the local shipbuilding industry, which doesn't go against the major principles, or else our shipbuilding industry may be phased out altogether in the end. So there is no hope for our industry, local industry. Well, can you incorporate both elements, WTO considerations and the support for local industry? Please take note of that request. Next one, Mr. Yip Kwok Him. I support this funding application. I would like to know that the Marine 1, 2, 7, and 23, which are going to be replaced, they have served for over 18 years. Well, let me put it this way. They have served for 18 years. Is this the maximum period that they can serve? For the new launches to be built, will their service life be extended? What is the service life of the latest launches? Also, are we adopting the latest standards or the most up-to-date standards for the launches? Or are we just following the old standards of the 4 old vessels? Are we having any enhancement here? Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Yip, for your questions. First, for these petrol launches which have GRP hulls, their service life is normally 15 years. But it doesn't mean that they must be replaced after 15 years. Our normal practice is that after 15 years, we will conduct detailed examination on the conditions of the vessels before we decide on whether we will continue with the repair and maintenance or replace them altogether. Now, take these few launches, for example. They have served for 18 years. By the time they are going to be replaced, they would have already served for 21 years. So if we don't make plans for replacement, then in the next few years, we will be spending a lot of time on maintenance works. And the maintenance cost is going to rise, and the time that the launches can be put to use will also be shortened, hence the replacement proposal. Now, in replacing launches, we also look at our operational needs. And we also take reference from equipment on other petrol launches. Whenever we conduct replacement exercises, we will do a review because the launches will be going to be used for 20 years, and we will try to project what our future needs are for the next 20 years, and we will try to install the most updated or sophisticated equipment. No other question from members? Then I will put the proposal to the vote. Those in favor of FCR 2013-14-56, please raise your hands. Those against, please raise your hand. No, none. Abstention? None. I think the majority of voting members support the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. I think we have finished all the vetting for all the items. The date for the next meeting, we'll notify members later. It will be after the Lunar New Year, the 7th of February. So, Happy New Year to you all. Thank you.